Welcome back. My name is Dave and this is Fuzzee Tutorials. Okay, as you can see, I've got my computer off my desk and over on my tech bench here, and the reason for that is I had a little bit of weirdness going on the other day and I went to reboot it and it would no longer boot. So I thought I'd take you along the journey of doing the troubleshooting and figuring out what's wrong. Now, I've already done some preliminary work, but I'll take you through that part of it again. I think I know what's going on, but this is going to confirm it. So let's get started. Alright, so we're going to try and boot it up here. And we'll see what happens. So I don't know if you can see those codes from here. Let me just move the camera a bit. Sorry for the bumping around. Hopefully you can see the debug code there, and you'll notice it's stopping on code 15. So I looked that code up, and that's basically sticking on initializing the north bridge. And on some previous testing, it did go up sometimes when I left it unplugged for a while, and it would get actually as far as code 22, which is initializing the RAM, and then it would restart and then get stuck on code 15. So what's most likely going on is the RAM, and let me tell you about why I think that is. So I'm just going to turn the system off here, turn the power supply off. So when I put this system together, I was working with a pretty healthy budget. I had about $4,000 Canadian to work with. But unfortunately, because of parts supply these days and what I wound up having to pay for a video card, I wound up getting the cheapest memory that I could lay my hands on that gave me the full 64 gigs that I was after. And I think that was a mistake, because I'll show you here in a second when I take the RAM out, it actually doesn't have any heat spreaders on it. And my budget was so tight, I just didn't have the extra 25-30 bucks to get something with heat spreaders on it. So I've got some other RAM here, courtesy of a client system that I built a while ago that he still hasn't been able to pick up. So I do have his permission for this. Actually, he offered to let me borrow parts from his computer to get mine going and keep it going until I could get the warranty replacement. So I'm also going to take you through doing the RMA process so that you'll kind of know what you're doing if you have to do this yourself. So let's pop this RAM out and I'll give you a closer view of the difference between it and the temporary RAM that's going into it that does have heat spreaders. So right now I'm just popping down the little retainer tabs so that I can pull the memory out. So this is the G-Skill Aegis RAM. Now I thought, being that it was G-Skill and the fact that I've got really good airflow in this case, I mean I've got three 120 Noctuas on the front, plus the tower cooler, and then a couple of Corsair fans for exhaust. I figured that it would be more than enough cooling for these, but with the way I push my system with doing video renders and that kind of thing, I think it probably just cooked them from overheating. I did have alarms set, so I never got any actual temperature alarms, but edge temperature for memory on motherboards is kind of notorious for not being very accurate. So now let me show you. Sorry for the noise outside there. So let me show you the difference between bare RAM like this and RAM that's got heat spreaders on it to help dissipate the heat. So this is the RAM that's going to go in its place. Unfortunately, these are 16 gig DIMMs and these are only 8 gig DIMMs, but 32 gigs will be enough to keep me going and at least get some work done. Now, when I get these replaced, I'm actually going to have to make the investment. You can buy standalone heat spreaders. Now, unfortunately, the only heat spreader kits that I can find have LEDs on them. Although they are cheap enough, so it's not a big deal. And I mean, as you know, I don't like paying extra just to have LEDs. However, each set of 2 is only like 16 bucks, so that's not too bad. I'm not really complaining. So, and I guess that'll give me a tiny bit more RGB in the system aside from the video card, which, you know, I'm not going to object. I just don't like paying extra for it is all. So let's put this other memory in and see if that is indeed the problem, or if it's going to wind up being the motherboard. Okay, so we're just going to set this aside. Gonna make sure they're good and seated. And in case you're wondering, the memory that's going in its place is G-Skill as well, but it is Flare X. Now this particular RAM, when I got it for my client system, I got it specifically because it's made for maximum compatibility with AMD systems. And if you're interested in seeing the video where I did the build on that client system, you can find that on the channel. It's from last October, I believe, so October 2020. And it's actually a 4-part detailed step-by-step guide on building a PC. Okay, let's turn on the power supply and see if we boot. Well, that's looking good so far. It's getting past code 15 and way past code 22. And being that it's new RAM in the system, it's going to reboot 3 or 4 times, as is typical of AMD motherboards. Now I don't have, oh actually I guess I do have my keyboard and mouse plugged in because they're wireless. But we're not actually getting a BIOS screen here. Let me just double check my monitor connections. Okay, I'm going to have to stop it here for a second while I go look up the code. We are on 0D on the debug LED readout, so I'll have to see what it's stopping on here. But just before I do that, I'm actually just going to do a restart here and see what happens. I might actually have to go in and clear the CMOS. Being that I'm clearing, actually I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to clear the CMOS and then reboot it here. So let's turn it off. Just in case some of my overclocking settings are causing an issue with the new memory. I didn't overclock the memory other than XMP profile, and it's the same speed of RAM, but you never know. Let me break out a flashlight here so I can see what I'm doing. Just a little jumper here I got to short out to clear the CMOS. I think that's the right one. No, I got terrible eyesight. I can't read the motherboard here. I think I got the right jumpers, but you know what? Just to be absolutely sure, I think I'm just going to pop that CMOS battery. Okay, so that's got to stay unplugged for about a minute to drain that capacitor. So I'm just going to go look up that code and we'll continue in a moment here. Okay, and we're back. All right, well, I couldn't actually find that particular code for some reason, but I did confirm that I did have the right CMOS clear jumpers, but I left the battery out long enough anyway, so the CMOS is cleared. So let's see if we can actually get it to boot up now and get into the BIOS. It looks like it might boot this time. It initialized the video card. But actually, well, no, it is still going. Well, looks like we're going to get a boot. All right. Okay, now I do want to confirm to see if something actually did get bungled up in the BIOS. I did have some pretty aggressive overclocking settings, and we had some weird power blips the other day. Now I do have a battery backup, but it is really old and it's been having troubles keeping up. I think it's about 20 years old or more. It's a 500 VA battery backup. It used to run a web server and a file server, but I found that when I was rendering video or when I was doing stress testing and stuff like that, it was actually setting up an alarm. I was pulling more power than it could provide. So there is a possibility that that messed up the CMOS settings. So I'm actually going to shut it back down here and put the old memory back in and see if I still get the same error or not, because I want to be absolutely sure that the memory is toast before I send it in. But even if it is okay, I'm still going to order up those heat spreaders just to be safe. But in any case, let's shut it down, swap the memory back, and see what happens here. Okay, let's try it again and see what happens. Well, it looks like we might actually be okay. Okay, she actually booted up pretty quick that time. All right. So it looks like, so the fact that it booted up okay with the old RAM back in it tells me it's probably just something that got messed up in the BIOS from the power flickering we had the other day. We actually had the lights in the office were flickering off and on pretty bad, and even got brighter a couple of times, which tells me there were some power surges. So with my battery backup being a little too small and really old, it might have allowed just enough fluctuation, although I didn't see anything. I was working on the computer at the time. I didn't see any flickering on the screen or anything, but that doesn't really mean much. So I've got two things that I need to worry about then. I need to get a new battery backup. I'm going to be moving to a 1200 VA, which is enough for 900 watts. And I've got an 850 watt power supply, so it should be plenty. I know the monitoring software for my old battery backup, it maxes out at showing 315 watts, so I know it was drawing way more than that when it was under load. So I want to make sure I play it safe. So unfortunately, I've got to save up a little money to get that, so it's going to take a little bit. And then the other thing I've got to look at is I want to go ahead and get those heat spreaders just to be safe. So I'm a little paranoid. So we'll go into the BIOS and we'll make the necessary changes here, and we'll make sure everything's stable. And I'll have to go through and reconfigure a few things here. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is go into, let me see if I can go into my XMP profile. So that should get my memory frequency up to the 3200 it's rated for. Okay, well, let's go into advanced mode here. And we're gonna put my overclock settings back. So I think I need to go up to 44. And I had the voltage set to 1.4 volts, but I probably didn't need to be that high, so I'm going to actually try and tune that down a little bit. I'm going to try it at probably 1.3 volts. Oh, too much. Okay. All right, let's try 1.304 volts. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and let's save that profile as Dave OC1. Okay, and let's save and exit. And it looks like it's going to boot okay with that. And I'm just going to go back into BIOS to confirm all the settings took effect and everything looks the way it should. It's definitely booting a few times here, but here we go. Okay, so yeah, we've got our CPU frequency of 4.4 gigahertz. And our memory is running at 3200. And it looks like we got the 1.3 volts. We can exit without saving. And we'll go ahead and boot into Windows. And then we'll do a stress test on the CPU to make sure that it's going to be stable at the 1.3 volts. Okay. Okay, let's get this out of the way so you can see the screen a bit better. All right. And let's go into our benchmarks here. And let's run Cinebench. Okay. So we'll just run the multi-core test here. Normally if I've got the voltage set too low for stability, it'll actually stop right here. And lock the system up. So it looks like it's going to be stable. So I'm glad to see that. That's a little less voltage running through the CPU, a little less heat going into the system. I think probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my side panel off until I get my heat spreaders for the memory. Oh, and it caused a reboot. I guess it's not going to be stable. So I guess we're going to have to bump it back up to 1.4. It almost made it through stably. Okay. So pound on that delete key. Give me the BIOS. Okay, so we'll go back to our, let me see here, we need our advanced CPU settings, I think. Oh, no, we can do it right here. Okay, actually I'm going to see if I can avoid going all the way up to 1.4 volts. So let's try 1.352 and we'll see if that is going to be stable. Let's save that profile. Okay. And we'll save and exit. Yeah, it's a nice thing about this 3900 XT variant is you can really overclock it nicely. Now you can actually get stability at higher than 3.4 or sorry 4.4 gigahertz, but I found that with the video card I've got and the memory speed I've got, overclocking it further than it is actually drops overall performance. I discovered that when I was doing the benchmarking in TimeSpy. When I set the world record, I actually set it with lower settings than the guy who had been in first place, and who had the same exact combination of equipment, the Radeon 6700 XT with a 3900 XT processor. And that's because the timings also need to match perfectly to get those really super high scores. So overclocking it to the absolute max is sometimes counterproductive. That's one of the tricks of overclocking that you eventually figure out. Okay, so let's check our stability here. See if 1.35 volts is enough. So basically I've found that if it makes it through 2 passes, then it's stable. I was never able to find show up any instability at more than 2 passes that didn't show up in the first 2. So well, those birds sure make a lot of noise out there. Sorry about all the noise there, folks, but we live in an older neighborhood just a little ways out of downtown, so we get a lot of noise outside. Well, so far so good. It looks like we're going to be stable at 1.35 volts. So I'm happy I was able to cut that voltage down just a touch. And well, it looks like we got a good score there too. 19,936. That's pretty darn good for a 3900 XT. That actually beats out the 16 core 1950X Threadripper by a pretty good margin, and it falls about halfway between there and the 24 core Intel Xeon. So definitely been really happy with the performance of this system I put together. Okay, now I'm just going to make sure my video card profile is set up. The way I want it here. Let me see. No, I've got to load my good settings here my overclocking settings that I got tweaked. So we'll load that up. Okay, which also sets my fan speed settings for my video card. Okay. And we'll run TimeSpy here. and see how we do today. And I know my old best score, which is, as far as I know, still #1. I'm not hooked up to the internet over here. I didn't bother putting my antenna and everything back, so I can't actually go in and show you, but I know the last score I got was just over 13,000. So, oh, I wonder if I've actually got internet connection here. Yeah, it's complaining I don't have my backup drive connected. Let me just get rid of that. And let's see if I've got... Oh, looks like I actually do have a network connection. Without the antennas. That's actually pretty impressive. So I guess maybe I can show you my scores there. But I'm not going to bother downloading the newest version of TimeSpy. Let's just run it the way it is. And we'll see if it stays stable. And now I won't have my battery backup complaining that I'm drawing too much power. Now you're going to see this go faster than it actually does in real time, because I'm not going to make you suffer through this in real time. I'll fast forward through this to the end. Okay, so we still got a score in excess of 13,000. I think that's actually a little bit better than my last score. So let's just fire up a web browser here and go take a look. This is one of the other YouTube channels I manage for a friend of mine. He's actually the client I built that computer for. So a shout out to his channel, which is Loves Loud Cars. That's his channel there. Okay. So we'll compare our results online. Add the results, and then we'll search for our hardware combo. we'll see if we still got number one or not. Yeah, it looks like I did beat my last score. So my last score was 13,021, so this time we got 13,065. So it looks like those few little adjustments I made to the voltage actually helped our numbers a bit. So that's good. So now I've got positions 1, 2, and 3, as well as 5 and 6. And 19 was when I did my first test, and before I did any overclocking or tweaking and tuning. And if you take a look here, you'll see that it shows what your CPU clock and core clock speed and memory clock, and you'll notice that he's got his set here to 4.454 and mine's at 4393, and his video card settings are set to a higher core clock and a higher mem clock, yet I'm beating him by quite a margin actually. So that just goes to show you that getting the absolute bleeding edge settings isn't always the best thing for performance. So, and that's probably one of the hardest lessons to learn doing overclocking, but it was one that I learned early on back in the day when I was doing overclocking 25 years ago, I think, is when I started doing overclocking. Back in the I think the first overclocking I was doing was on a 486. It was a 486 DX or something like that, and that's when you could get some serious performance gains by overclocking. You know, now it's sure you get good performance gains, but it's the percentage of increase is a lot lower than it used to be back in the day. So, you know, as many of you know, I was out of the game for about 15 years due to illness. But it's been nice to get caught up on current tech and find that I can still do some of the stuff I used to do. It's somewhat gratifying. And I just want to apologize that I haven't actually put out a video for, well, it's over a month anyway. I think it's almost 6 weeks. I was having some growing pains transitioning to the new system. I had to get my MacBook Pro backing up over the network, and I made the mistake of trying to do it with wireless. And the first full backup I did over wireless, just creating the empty ISO of a 1 gig size across the network took a long time. I think that actually took almost 40 hours. Well, no, actually it took about 26 hours, and then the actual backup of, I think it was 385 gigs into that spot using Wi-Fi took almost 40 hours. So, and that's not all because of Wi-Fi speeds. You know, as many of you know, my MacBook has got some serious issues. It still functions, but it's got I/O problems, and the discrete video chip on it is blown. So, which is why I had to build this new one to begin with. So I'm hoping that I can do some more regular videos here. I was also having some problems with my back, which has improved a bit now, and so I've got a little bit of rearranging of my setup to do here, because the way I set stuff up initially was not optimal. So I've got some fine-tuning to do there, but I'm hoping I can get back to my regular schedule of about a video a week. I've also been busy editing for that other channel that I manage, so I just haven't had the time to do stuff for myself, but this kind of forced me into making some time, because I figured if I had to do some diagnostics on my system, I'd take you along for the ride and kind of show you how we go about the process. Luckily, it turned out to be a pretty simple thing. At least to me, it seemed like a simple thing. But I hope you were able to learn something from it. So I am glad to have you hanging out with me today for a bit. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.